Record.
I'm Bill Lowry, Cook County Commissioner of the 3rd District, and you're listening to 15 Minutes with Marcus.
You're watching another segment of 15 Minutes with Marcus. I'm sitting down with Commissioner Bill Lowry out of Cook County, one of the top commissioners in the nation. He's a champion in all sorts of issues, human source related and business related as well. Commissioner Lowry, why don't you tell the people a little bit about yourself?
Well, first of all, I want to say thank you, Marcus, for having me this morning. It's a pleasure always to see you, my brother. So
I appreciate that.
So I am Bill Lowry. I'm Cook County Commissioner of the 3rd District. I have been serving for about 2.5 years out of the 4 years, and I will be running for re-election.
Nice.
Born and raised on the south side of Chicago. Went to St. Francis de Sales and had to leave St. Francis de Sales after being shot at one day leaving basketball practice, being called the N-word. So it just shows that all of us are going to be exposed to some obstacles. The question is what we do once we are exposed. After that, went on to Francis Parker, led me to Lake Forest College and then Loyola Law School. I've been a practicing attorney for 33 years. I head up a 50-person litigation firm. I also am a husband of 30 years and a proud father of 3. And also, as you said, I now serve also as Cook County Commissioner of the 3rd District.
So that leads me into our first question. This
Okay.
makes sense. Many people actually see you as a trailblazer. I do too. That has no problems or issues speaking your mind in a society where that's not always popular to do.
Right.
What gives you the courage to stand up for the people and fight the way that you do?
First of all, I appreciate that question, and it's a very important question. I'm a man of God, and I certainly embrace Galatians and understand that we are here to love and to serve. And while I may fall short of the mark from time to time, I strive each and every day to share unconditional love and then also service, which is rooted in integrity. And that is my base. And that's a base that I carry with me when I'm dealing with my family. That's a base I carry with me when I'm practicing law. And it's also a base that supports me as I serve as Cook County Commissioner. So I think it's very important when you are serving the interests of others, you must do so in a transparent way. You must do so rooted in integrity, but you also must do so with a real willingness to listen. You know, I think communication is so important, but it isn't just speaking, it's also listening. So that's something that I've tried to bring to this space as well. The other thing that arms me and cloaks me relative to really my real comfort in speaking my truth as I serve the interests of the 3rd District is the fact that I came here to serve. I didn't come here because I needed a job. I had a job.
Yes.
I ran for office, and thankfully I was afforded the opportunity to serve, but I ran because I wanted to be part of the solution. And I realized on the outside, to really impact, you gotta be on the inside. You can't play it safe, you gotta jump in, you gotta be proximate, you've gotta be able to work with others who are like-minded to bring about not just change that day, but generational change that will outlive all of us. So I've also seen and encountered some electeds where I don't think that that's their reality. I think that they will do whatever they have to do to stay in that position. And that's often because that's really the only position that they can be in.
Oh, wow.
And I'm not that person. So for all those reasons, I absolutely live my life rooted in integrity. But it all starts with me being a child of God.
Yeah, I absolutely love that. And I think we need more of that out of elected officials. And I think it's important that you said what you said, because on a national level, I do work with elected officials doing videos across the country.
Right.
So I'm like everywhere. And typically when I do reach out to a person, I only go for the best of the best. So I won't just, interview, anyone.
Right.
I grab a person that the people should listen to. With that being said, it seems like there's a push for mental health.
Yes.
I know in your private practice, you actually work with that and you deal with that. And I know you take it seriously, because I've listened to, you being you're in the community and you're being so involved. What are 2 things that we can do to push the issue of mental health forward, to continue to push it forward?
Right. The first thing is talk about it. I think for too long, mental health has been kind of a topic that folks just didn't want to touch. But mental health or the need for mental health care is just as acute as your need for a splint if you have a broken arm, or a heart surgery if you're having a problem with your heart. And we in Chicago, certainly throughout Chicago, but I think this whole country, we have a mental health care desert in some ways, and certainly in our communities. In the Black community, we need healthcare services overall, including mental health care. You know, as I go around, Marcus, and I talk to members of the district of all ages, including our youth, there's a lot of post-traumatic stress going on. And individuals need to have, that situation dealt with. And it's so important that we don't just talk, but we act. And while it's important to have conversations, action is more paramount. And that's why I, with other electeds, we really were very involved with this, the Mercy Initiative. And when it became evident that Mercy Hospital, as we knew it, as we saw it, as I grew up, was going to go away, our job then became to find a healthcare provider to take the place of Mercy, to provide the services to our community that we not only need, but we deserve. And that included a full service emergency room with ambulance accessibility. That included a labor and delivery department. We shouldn't have to go out of the community to give birth to our children. But it also included, and this was very, very, very important, mental health care services. So we want to make sure that members of our community can get the services they need relative to mental health care without having to go outside of the community. Chicago closed, I want to say, 6 mental health clinics in 2012.
Oh, wow.
And 6 in 2012. And that decision is still reverberating, and it's not reverberating in a good way. The other thing I'm going to say about mental health is we need to resource it differently, in my opinion. As I sit here today in Cook County Jail, we have probably near 6,000 detainees out of the individuals who are being detained. And let's keep in mind, if you're a detainee, you've been charged but not found guilty. So out of those detainees, 74% are African American, and out of that 74%, 96% are African American men, right? A large number of those detainees, they don't need incarceration, they need mental health care. So I would like to see us put resources into making sure that care is available on the outside of the prison or on the outside of the Cook County Jail, instead of just trying to find ways to resource treatment on the inside. And that's something that we can do, that's doable, and I think that would make a big, big difference. So that's something we need to do. We need to put our dollars where our mouth is, and we need to do everything we can to provide those services for individuals before they find themselves charged with some type of crime.
Oh, wow. Yeah, absolutely. So that kind of segues us into the next question. On the national level,
Right.
On the national level, I was going to ask about one.
Right.
But what are 2 laws that you would like to see passed on the national level?
Right. So, we all talk daily about the COVID pandemic, but we obviously have experienced a second pandemic, as well. I'm talking about structural racism. I'm talking about economic inequality. I'm talking about police brutality, right? And I think that this entire country has been forced to re-examine, who we are through the lifeless eyes of Ahmaud Arbery and Breonna Taylor and Walter Wallace and George Floyd and many, many, many other brothers and sisters who we've lost. And as we look forward to attacking the issues which have put us in this place, one of the obvious ones is police brutality. So I am anxiously awaiting the Senate to take up the George Floyd Policing Act. And, it's passed the House. It's sitting, it hasn't even, I don't think it's even gone to the Senate yet, but we need that passed. And while that act will really bring a lot of different components to the whole, the national discussion relative to police brutality and how to deal with police brutality, there are 2 facets that are especially appealing to me. One, there'll be a registry where any complaints that are levied, even if they are unfounded, based on an investigation, there are still complaints which will show on that individual police officer's registry. It's called a misconduct registry. That's important. But even more important, it will dissolve qualified immunity. And if you dissolve qualified immunity, that means that a police officer may face personal liability in a civil action for their acts as a police officer. As we sit here today, they have immunity. I think once they lose that immunity, once they face personal exposure, not only for them, but their families, we may see conduct that is different. That's my expectation. So if nothing else, we want to see qualified immunity dissolved, and that act will do so.
And this is on the national level.
This is national. Right now, this is in Congress, and it's passed the House, and the George Floyd Policing Act will next go before the Senate, and we can get the Senate to approve it. At that point, we'll have a new law, and a law that will impact police brutality. So that's very important. The other national measure which is pending is the Safe Banking Act, and I'm looking eagerly to see when that passes. And this is why. When we had in Illinois the new law which created an allowance for recreational cannabis, we thought it was very important for us to try to give breath and breathe life into the legislative history of that legislation, which talked about the need to make sure that social equity applicants had a piece of this new pie, that businesses that would evolve as a result of recreational cannabis, some of them landed in the disproportionately impacted areas, not only of Cook County, but throughout this state. So we started the Cook County Cannabis Commission. And as you know, and as many know who are joining us, there have been a lot of bumps in the road relative to this new law. And we've been very fortunate to be one of the resources, and we have fed suggestions to those in Springfield relative to ways to tweak it. We talked earlier, I'm not afraid to speak my truth, so we're speaking it. But the most important thing is we must ensure that our community is getting a piece of this pie. And everything that I do, whether it's cannabis, whether it's contracts, I want to make sure that Blacks have a seat at the table. That is my job, right? So it's very important to do that. The Safe Banking Act will then allow monies which flow from recreational cannabis to be placed in the bank. And I think that's important. Right now, you do not have that allowance, so you have to find different ways to store the resources which flow from cannabis sales or from your business, etc. So I think that's something to keep an eye on too. The Safe Banking Act will absolutely impact cannabis sales throughout the country.
Oh, wow. Man, with your insight and input, especially with your thoughts, I think it's great that we have you in Cook County. I know when I was at the Illinois Department of Corrections, I believe probably 60%, no, 80% of the inmate population came from above I-80.
Mm-hmm.
Over 50% of the state's inmate population came from Cook County itself. So I'm really glad that we have you in Cook County, able to deal with all of this. But at the same time, it would be really great to see you on the national level with your thought process. And the reason I say that is because while, we're from here, because I was originally born on the south side, Inglewood, that's where I was originally from. But, we have all of these issues here. But when I look across the country, if you look at LA, New York, certain parts of Texas, East St. Louis, places closer to home, we look at it, these issues, people are collectively suffering and they don't have seats at the table. That's why it's wonderful that you're, in Cook County, because it's a remarkable place and that, you're making a difference here. But it would be great to see, more people, you be able to affect more people.
Mm-hmm.
Again, you're affecting a lot of people here, but it would be great to see you be able to take care of that on a national level. Is there anything else you want to tell the people before we segue out?
Well, I'll just quickly speak to that since you in your very smooth and subtle way, you're saying I need to run for a national office. but in all seriousness, I'll kind of end the way I started. Luke 12 says, to whom much is given, much is required.
Mm-hmm.
If that is required of me at some point, God will make that apparent and we will do so.
Well, you would have my full support.
Thank you.
Everyone, you watched another segment of 15 Minutes with Marcus. This is Commissioner Bill Lowry, one of the top commissioners in the nation. And after listening to him, you can understand why I said that. We appreciate you for tuning in. Thank you.